Which viney thing I took down?
The plant that was on the high shelf?
Oh, you transplanted it into fresh soil.
Yes.
Nice.
There was literally that much of compacted soil in that pot. How that
Wow.
plant was living, I have no idea.
Wow.
You can't kill me that easily. I can live without water and soil.
Yeah. All right, we are going to watch. This is from archive.org. So, and we also have to remember that this was 4 years ago. 4.
Okay.
Now, in the past,
Can you hear that?
many tyrants and governments wanted to do it, but nobody understood biology well enough. And nobody had enough computing power and data to hack millions of people. Neither the Gestapo nor the KGB could do it. But soon, at least some corporations and governments will be able to systematically hack all the people. We humans should get used to the idea that we are no longer mysterious souls. We are now hackable animals. That's what we are.
Now, there are not many historians who would be put on the main stage of the Congress Center of the World Economic Forum, sandwiched between Angela Merkel and Macron. I think there are even fewer who could fill the room almost as much as Angela Merkel, and almost none who would have the experience as we were waiting in the green room and Angela Merkel came through, Chancellor Merkel came through. She took care to stop, go up to Yuval and introduce herself and say, "I've read your book."
We don't really know ourselves. To give an example, when I was 21, I finally realized that I was gay after living for several years in denial. And this is not exceptional. A lot of gay men live in denial for many years. They don't know something very important about themselves. Now imagine the situation in 10 or 20 years when an algorithm can tell any teenager exactly where he or she is on the gay-straight spectrum, and even how malleable this position is.
Wow.
We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens. We've reached the point when we can hack not just computers, we can hack human beings and other organisms. Now, what do you need in order to hack a human being? You need two things. You need a lot of computing power, and you need a lot of data, especially biometric data. Not data about what I buy or where I go, but data about what is happening inside my body and inside my brain. Until today, nobody had the necessary computing power and the necessary data to hack humanity. Even if the Soviet KGB or the Spanish Inquisition followed you around everywhere, 24 hours a day, watching everything you do, listening to everything you say, still, they didn't have the computing power and the biological knowledge necessary to make sense of what was happening inside your body and brain and to understand how you feel and what you think and what you want. But control of data might enable human elites to do something even more radical than just build digital dictatorships. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself. Because once you can hack something, you can usually also engineer it. And if indeed we succeed in hacking and engineering life, this will be not just the greatest revolution in the history of humanity. This will be the greatest revolution in biology since the very beginning of life 4 billion years ago. Science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds, the IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud. These are the new driving forces of evolution. So does the data about my DNA, my brain, my body, my life, does it belong to me or to some corporation or to the government or perhaps to the human collective? Maybe the most important exchange in this respect will be in healthcare. The big battle over what we today call privacy will be between privacy and health. Do you give access to what is happening inside your body and brain in exchange for far better healthcare? And my guess is that health will win, hands down. People will give up their privacy in exchange for healthcare, and maybe in many places they won't have a choice. I mean, they won't even get insurance if they are unwilling to give access to what is happening inside their bodies. But control of data might enable human elites to do something even more radical than just build digital dictatorships. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself. In the 21st century, the really big struggle will be against irrelevance. And it's much worse to be irrelevant than to be exploited. Those who fail in the struggle against irrelevance would constitute a new useless class. People who are useless, not from the viewpoint of their friends and family, of course, but useless from the viewpoint of the economic and political system. And this useless class will be separated by an ever-growing gap from the ever more powerful elite. If you know enough biology and you have enough computing power and data, you can hack my body and my brain and my life, and you can understand me better than I understand myself. Because as humans will rely on AI to make more and more decisions for us, authority will shift from humans to algorithms. And this is already happening. Already today, billions of people trust the Facebook algorithm to tell us what is new. The Google algorithm tells us what is true. Netflix tells us what to watch, and the Amazon and Alibaba algorithms tell us what to buy. In the not-so-distant future, similar algorithms might tell us where to work and whom to marry, and also decide whether to hire us for a job, whether to give us a loan, and whether the central bank should raise the interest rate. And if you ask why you will not given a loan, or why the bank didn't raise the interest rate, the answer will always be the same. Because the computer says no. And since the limited human brain lacks sufficient biological knowledge, computing power, and data, humans will simply not be able to understand the computer's decisions. So even in supposedly free countries, humans are likely to lose control over our own lives and also lose the ability to understand public policy.
That's intense.
And you know what's funny is that I remember when I first heard these words, they were actually more so written from his books. Like what he's talking about on the stage is just him repeating what he wrote in his books. And in 2018, knowing that this was the intent of the elites, was to go down this path. I mean, they don't go and invite him to speak at the World Economic Forum unless his ideas are going to be very attractive to the customers of the World Economic Forum. And the only customer that the World Economic Forum is targeting are people who would be legislators, because they want to legislate. That's the only way you can bring about what he's talking about, is through legislation. You can't do that in any other way. So of course he's going to be the best one to send to the World Economic Forum in 2020. He is the best at being able to put to language. English isn't even his first language, and he is by far the best man on the planet to have speak at a conference where tyrants, people who are addicted to living like a tyrant, go to learn how, okay, this get really, really clear with what the World Economic Forum is. People think that it's some sort of powerhouse, that it has the capacity of inflicting evil upon people. And no, the World Economic Forum is a marketing think tank. That's what it is. It's a marketing think tank for politicians whose only desire is to figure out how to get the consent of the governed to be more restricted, to get them to be more restricted. That's their job as politicians. So they go to this place called the World Economic Forum in order to learn how to do their job better. That is, sell the people on tyranny. So, why am I bringing this up? First of all, it's Metal Monday. So, I'm listening to an album right now that is near and dear to my heart, and it's full-on dystopian metal. And the reason I do that is because it helps me, especially at the beginning of the week, to remember why I do what I do, even amongst most of the time I feel like I'm struggling. I do what I do because what they have planned is no different from what they've done in the past. Like he said, even the KGB couldn't do this. Even the Gestapo couldn't do this. He was glorifying it. He was glorifying the type of tyranny that abolishes heritage. And it's nobody's fault except for the governed. You see, we have enough knowledge about the way of the laws of nature to know that what the founding fathers said at the beginning of the Declaration of Independence. By the way, there was a, we hear about the self-evident truths, right? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they have the right to pursue the, I don't have it memorized, but they have the right to pursue they have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But there's another self-evident truth, another law of nature that is further on down the line, because it's comma after comma after comma explaining what all these self-evident truths are, putting them all together into one sentence. And the very last one is, almost the last one, is that the government gets its powers from the consent of the governed. So if your local politician is attending the World Economic Forum, that is not the World Economic Forum having control over your country. That is you not saying something about it to your neighbor. Silence makes this engine grow. Oh, they're building data centers. What do we got to stop these data centers? No, you don't have to stop the data centers from being built. Stop petitioning your local politicians to do something about the data centers being built. You see, what's happening is that, like he said, I think people will give up their privacy for health. I think they'll do that. He's absolutely right. They will do that. And because of the sheer amount of data that is required to have surveillance on biometrics, they have to build these data centers. They are just responding like any other capitalist. So if you don't like it, stop using your phone. Because that right there was the $10 billion weapon that precursors biometrics. Why do you think they got a face scanner on it? That's so convenient. You can unlock your phone. You can just look at it. Of course people are going to do it. And they are also programmed to believe that viruses are real. They're also programmed to believe that, the next pandemic is going to wipe out humanity unless we mask up. I hate to sound dystopian, but it's Metal Mondays, and they are assembling a shit ton of metal to facilitate what the people express is their desire. Mm-hmm. Oh man, wouldn't it be so nice if I could save money on a phone? So you see, I don't want to get the $1,500 phone. I just want to get the $900 phone so that I can have a smaller hard drive. And that way I can use the cloud for my data. Freeland, go ahead. You had your...
Sugar. I let it go.
I took too long.
What were you talking about just prior to that? Masking up.
Oh,
I remember during the masking times, a mask that had the plastic like this was unacceptable to AHS. It had to be the blue nastiness. You couldn't see the mouth. You couldn't see the expression. Yes, of course they want us to mask up. Yep, of course they want us. I mean, I'm just as much to blame. I got facial recognition on this. And it's truly a plus minus. And I also recognize the importance of remembering all those passwords and shit everywhere so that I'm self-responsible for that stuff, not dependent upon the machine.
Right. That's right. Further to why I do what I do. It's because I don't want to see people's data be tokenized by someone else. All they have to do is control the currency. We've known this for a long time. It was the Rothschild family that said that back in the 1600s. I don't care what politics the people choose as long as I have control over the means of exchange. As long as they have that, they don't care how you vote. They don't care whether it's full-on freedom or full-on tyranny that people elect. That's why they throw in both of their favorites. Whoever's really good at speaking left-wing, we'll just get them to go in there. We'll get someone who is as eloquent in people speak as Noah is as what's his name? I forget his Harari. Yeah, Harari. We're going to get Yuval Harari to speak for the tyrants because he's so good at their language. We're going to get the best people who are good at speaking leftist speak. And then we're going to have the people who are really good at speaking right wing speak. And we'll just get them to argue against each other on TV so that people argue against each other in the streets. Because they're so good at fighting, it'll be the best. And they'll fight over who is the lesser of evils. That's the funniest part, right? It's like, no, we know it's not the best option, but it's better than the other one. As if there were only two. No, left or right wing, that's all there is. Because people are that, they are that susceptible to the programming. And this is the problem. Is that your neighbor who is lost and floundering and flailing about through life trying to make it work. The only reason we're all in this situation is because nobody spoke up. And the ones that did were ridiculed. They weren't accepted. Like, it's like, I lost virtually all of my friends in 2020. And I'm beginning to see the same type of thing happen to people who are in that fringe minority. There's almost like there was already division between the maskers and anti-maskers. And then it turned into a greater division when it got down to the jab. And now you can bet your boots that down to this level where the fringe minority is, there is now division being wedged in there. Because it's got to get more and more fragmented. The more fragmented everybody is, the more they are not speaking each other's language.
Nor respecting the right to not speak each other's language. I may not understand you, or I might not agree with you, and I would fight to the death for you to continue to speak as you do.
Yep.
I said that once to my daughter about her mental health condition, non-binary, that even though I don't agree with you, I would fight for your right to think and feel that way. Just don't expect me to think as you do.
There. Wanted to start it off market analysis with that because it's important. It's important. People recognize where we are in the timeline of things.
Paul,
Yeah.
are we privately recording or on YouTube today?
I am broadcasting on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Thanks.
Did you want to chat about? Because I could go without.
No, it's.
Chat
I
about
just.
something?
I just wanted to be clear on which. That's it. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Can I say something about a couple things that you said?
Yeah.
I'll go somewhere where there's not guitar in the background. Beautiful guitars.
Sounds wonderful. Yeah.
I think it's an important distinction that you made. You said, nobody spoke up. And then you said, and the people who did, various things happened to them. They were silenced for sure, some permanently. I think that's important to keep clear on. Because it isn't that nobody spoke up. Not unilaterally, nobody.
Right. Yes.
The voices have been silenced.
Yeah, it was definitely a generalization. The silence is what is the silence is the cancer, not
is
the
cancer. What?
I would say the cancer, right? Silence is cancer, and they will suppress to make sure that cancer grows.
Right.
And unfortunately, I think where my And admittedly, I'm still very, very bitter about the whole thing because, I remember in 2021 was kind of the last year that I had contact with some of the people in the previous life. I say,
Mm,
you know, I would say, how, it's funny, we say, oh, when did this occur? When did that occur? And we use
mhm.
things like, oh, it was in AD or in BC. Well, now I just say it was BC, which is before COVID.
Right.
And the life that I had there, I still met up with some of those people into
Mhm.
2021. And I can remember at a gathering, there was at this particular place, they didn't care about your vaccine status or anything like that, and so they didn't have the restrictions. They got tons of harassment from the health officials and stuff like that, but they got through it, so to speak. And but we were there in this meeting room, and there was a guy who was triple jab probably because he was all about the restrictions and stuff like that. And it was at that gathering where I told him, "Oh yeah, no, like you didn't know that James, his friend, you didn't know that James wasn't allowed to go and watch the movies with his family?" He's like, "What? What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Yeah, no, James wasn't allowed to go to the movies." I don't know what it's like because it had been a couple months since he told me, but I don't think that he's been able to go and do a lot of things with his family lately. And he's like, "What?" He didn't even know. And James was his friend. And he all of a sudden was like, "That's not right." And he said, "That should raise tons of red flags." He said, "You know, I went ahead with everything because I figured that that's how it had to be. But I didn't know that there was force being applied." And I was like, "It's all like I'm thinking to myself, it's all around us. How did you not know?" And that's what got him upset. Wait a second. My friend is not allowed to go and do things because he didn't get it? He-
Yeah, and to this day, people don't know. Even if you
Yeah.
tell them, they don't know.
We have that responsibility to continue to speak up. Now, here's where I'm going with this because I am 100% recognizing that silencing occurred, but and I used to get upset about it in 2020, 2021. I was very, again, bitter at that time for being censored for as long as I was, getting silenced, canceled, so on and so forth. Here's the thing: we are asked what we're doing by saying, "Oh no, you can't cancel me. That's a violation of my free speech." No, no, it is not. You see, you sign up for those accounts where you think that you have the right to freely speak, and your content gets throttled or your account gets banned, not because you exercised your right of free speech. You got canceled because what you had to say was against the community standards of a private corporation with whom you had contracted. Why? Because you have an account there. It's not your data. You are renting it. And if they don't like how you're treating it, you get evicted eventually, right? Like Audrey Lynn, talk about your neighbor there. Like I'm astonished that they haven't been evicted simply because of the destruction that their pets have probably. We know how destructive those pets are to the property. You can hear them running around like it's a fucking zoo in there.
And months ago, I found a handrail outside of their suite, and the ends were all chewed off.
Yeah, you
The
know,
only
you,
reason why they cleaned up the dog poop in the yard was because I filed a formal complaint with the town of Rocky Mountain House
yep.
about the poop. How do I know it had an effect? Because the owner of the dogs was complaining that if he didn't clean up the poop, he's gonna call the cops on me. It's like, you right? If
Yeah,
that's what it
he was
takes, okay.
he was bitching with his wife that he had to clean up because otherwise the police would call. Not because it would be good to have a clean yard.
And the dogs would bring poop on their paws into the house with their
Yeah,
4-year-old son.
yeah,
No, no, no.
yeah.
I mean, there's building immunity, and then there's stupid, and then there's cholera. I mean, like, come on.
But that's the thing, right? The landlord doesn't care enough to do whatever he like. Yeah.
I mean,
That's
the
the
property manager, she's a lovely woman, and she is run way off her feet, and the
yeah.
owner doesn't care.
Hmm.
I mean, if he really wanted to benefit his community, which apparently he owns a lot of properties here, he would slap on some paint and move out tenants that are difficult, and no matter what the cost is in the courts, you just get rid of them.
Hmm.
But nope, we get to figure all that out.
And where I'm going with this is that when people are destructive to someone else's property, when there are people who are working against your vision and mission for what it is that you bought your property to do, if you've built a property, if you have a specific mission and intention for that place, and someone comes along and says, "Oh yeah, I'm aligned with that," and they come on board only to work against your vision and your mission, of course you're going to evict them. It's your property. So, people saying, "Oh, Facebook silenced us." No. They manage their property poorly. I don't agree with how they manage their property, but that's why I stopped using the service. Because that's what you do when you are, if you don't like your cell phone provider, you change cell phone providers, right? Because that's what you do. We don't sit there and bemoan Facebook's management of their data. It's their fucking data. It's their precious metal. X, I'm sit here and I complain because X, Elon buys Twitter, and everybody jumped on the bandwagon that Elon must be good for free speech because look what he's doing. He's stopping the evil Twitter from suppressing our speech. No, 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 no. All he did was that he took the right wing's side of controlling the language patterns. He didn't do anything different. He just switched the polarity of the fucking bots. That's all he did. And of course, a week after October 7th of 2023, I tweeted about how terrible it was that Gazans were being genocided. And I lost my account. Now it's actually kind of cool to talk about it. You got fucking Tucker Carlson talking about it, for God's sake. He's not getting silenced. Why did I get silenced when I said it? Oh, right, because it wasn't at a convenient time. Now it's convenient. Now the truth of it is coming out to play out the whole prophecy from, the Zechariah 12, right? So now it's a convenient time to start being anti-Semitic a little bit. Now we got Thomas Massey coming forward. He's a great governor speaking against the corruption of Israel. Wait a second. That was something that you could be suicided for. now it's cool, right? So they get to do with the data whatever they want to do, and they're going to do with their data whatever they want to do to further their agendas. So why do I do what I do? Because I want to make it where we don't have the capacity of being silenced. How? Self-govern your data. That's how you do it. Oh yeah, no, I've got that data. I can share that data freely. I'm very selective with who I share it. And that's what makes me not give a shit about going on YouTube talking about this stuff, because YouTube just doesn't have it. Like, I'm never going to be famous. It's never going to get out there. YouTube, no, I've trained YouTube to allow my content simply by making it so that people don't consume it. Why? Because it's their data. They can do whatever they want with it. The only reason I do it is because I want to be able to embed those videos into something like Telegram so people like you can share that information directly. Me, I don't care. What are they going to do? Cancel me? Yeah. It's just data. And when you are using someone else's transmission of data, what that is you are transacting equity, their equity. You may have taken the time to create the data. You may be using your life force energy to spread the word and do all that stuff, and you can call it your property. But if you're using their means of exchange, you have to abide by the terms and conditions of the platform, of the trade route. No different than how the Romans did their thing. They controlled the trade route of the Mediterranean. That's why they took the maritime law and they stuck it into their civil law, and it became Roman municipal law. But the Roman municipal law was just derived from the Mediterranean, the law of the sea. And it worked so well that tyrants continue to use it, and they call it a citizenship. That's why I talked last week. I was like, I think what happens is these things go over top of people's heads. Caesar Augustus, he was the first citizen. That's what Caesar means. The first citizen, citizen one. That's what Caesar means. Augustus meant augmented man. Why do you think Sam's last name is Altman? Because he's the alternate to man. Right? And then he goes and creates a machine that becomes the mirror of mankind, kind of like what Harari was saying. Hey, we're not created in the image of God. We're creating a machine in our image. Which then allows mankind, because of the interoperability that our biometrics have with the new technology that's running through a bunch of veins, which, by the way, that was a failed experiment. Yes, there was tech in there, nanotech, self-replicating nanobots and all the rest, but it was just an experiment. That wasn't the actual. They weren't going to actually do it with the real thing. No, they needed to experiment first. They needed a nice big large data set. So they put the nanotechnology into the bloodstream just to see what would happen. Oh, and look, the coroners are finding these long strings of shit coming out. They got to pull out with all this stuff to prepare the body, and like, wow, it's really alarming. No, it was just an experiment. That's what that was. It was not alarming. I get, for a lot of people it was alarming because they woke up during that time, and I'm grateful that it was visceral enough to give their heads a shake. But I mean, it wasn't surprising. It was not shocking at all that they would run an experiment to facilitate, to gather the data necessary to facilitate the development of the actual. Why do you think these data centers are being built? Because they need to be able to have a place to collect the data. They don't have the level of biometric data. Like we already have that. You know, people have got their Fitbits and their Apple Watches, and they've got all this different technology that's transmitting biometric data already. We don't need the data centers for that shit. No, 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 no. They got to build the data centers for the technology that's coming. And the only reason it's happening is by the consent of the governed, period. No other capacity, no other means is available to them. They can't do this. They don't even have money. They got to take it from you first. The consent of the governed is what makes this work. And the silence, the quietness that I'm referencing is, I believe, even us. We are not loud enough. And I'm not saying that we all got to go out there and blow a bullhorn. But that there must be, that I'm of the mind that we ought to challenge ourselves in ways that we can help people see the light of truth. Again, I don't think that we should be, like, I'm just going off on here because I'm ranting right now. But, and I don't suggest that you go and talk to your neighbor like this. But that there must be some way that we can shine a little light in their life to help them see the error of their ways. They are literally building these data centers every time they go and reach for their phone or connect their Apple Watch to the cloud. Oh, I got my health data in there. It tells me when the best time to fall asleep is. Oh, it reminds me when I need to work out. Oh, my blood sugar is a little bit high. When these are things that your body tells you without the tech. We're literally building these data centers that everyone's complaining about. And it's funny too, because I see on X all the time, people are like, these data centers are terrible. Yeah, you're using your phone to make that. You're literally demanding for more data every time you complain about the data centers.
And every time that they go and reference Grok or Claude or Gemini or whatever on these data centers, it's like you're feeding the beast.
Even Claude and Gemini and Grok and all these things, you don't need the data centers to run those. You can do it locally. Like, meaning that you can have a device in your own home and do that. I'm not saying that everybody needs to go and do that, but I'm just saying you don't have to have a data center to run all this tech. The data center is just there because they want to centralize the data that comes from us. That literally will emanate from people's own biology. They want to take that data and collect it. They're working on ways to get that data wirelessly, okay? So just chill. The technology's in its infancy right now. We think that these dangerous jabs are the problem. Are you kidding me? That's not what's downstream is the problem. Like, yeah, it's a big problem, but people are going to do what they're going to do because the consent of the governed that's what makes it lawful, by the way. You know, we say, oh, that's illegal. No, it's only illegal if you refuse and they force you to do it. It's not illegal for people to go, and it's not even unlawful for people to willingly massacre themselves. Like, okay, I mean, it's kind of weird. It's not, I don't think it's right in the head, but it's lawful. It's like, I remember making I got questions about my arguments nowadays, but I remember saying years ago, did you know that the stories that we are told about, how the Germans rounded up the Jews and the Jews were just, they were treated miserably and loaded up into rail cars and all this stuff. I get that that's the kind of stuff that happens. But here's the thing. All of those people that were rounded up, they outnumbered the guards 13-1. Germany did not have enough enforcers to enforce 2 people to do what they did. It's the silence that makes the engine grow. It's the overall, and again, I recognize individuals notwithstanding, and I believe we have a very serious call. Some people get the call of the void. I would call this the call of God to be a light in the darkness. There's my analysis of the market, 45 minutes in. Questions? That was a nice little rant. I had to get that out. This is the theme of this album that I'm listening to today. Not all Metal Mondays, but this day in particular, I focused in on that one album. And these are the questions that they're asking. Like, how do we deal with this? Well, stop feeding the algorithm. The only reason why the algorithm is spitting something out is because it got something spit into it. Like, we are the input. If we don't like the output, maybe we should go and do something about that. It's like a computer programmer. When the computer doesn't create the output that's desired, it doesn't get produced. Like, oh, geez, that's terrible. And he hits the backspace. No, I did that wrong. If we don't like where AI is going, that is on us. I think people actually do, like, on a whole, generally speaking, the majority absolutely love where AI is going. Why do I say that? Because they vote with their dollars. The attention token is what they use to endorse the very thing that will destroy them. It's kind of nice. It's kind of nice. Every once in a while, those purges are nice, because then what happens is that all of these unproductive, or what he says, useless people are moved aside. We can actually get some work done when we don't have a majority who despise us and reject us and ostracize us and push us to the very outer edges of sociology, of a socioeconomic even, right? It's like, oh, your social credit score is terrible, right? But that's not a money thing. That's just, oh, you're not chasing the dollar? What is wrong with you? Oh, you don't have you look like that guy this morning. You need a truck. Thank you, Albertan. Yes.
It would have been a little bit more convenient to slide buckets as opposed to stuff them in a car.
And like, we were fine. We had enough room to put another 20% in. But you know how it is. Like, there is that expectation. Oh, you live in Alberta and you don't have a truck. Like, that's the mentality, right? Because that's the reality here. We're remote. It's like there's a gravel road that goes from here about 130 kilometers, and it's unimproved, and it's just 10 minutes away. And it goes into the mountains. It's rough out here. And no, we don't. you need a truck for some things, sure, but it's not a status, right? And that's where I'm going with this. Your social credit score is always going to be measured, whether it's by the government or your neighbor. And if you don't get the jab, your social credit score with your neighbor really went down in 2020 or 2021. I couldn't find a place to rent. I had to move it. When was that? It was around the end of 2021. I moved, and I couldn't find a place to rent because they wanted vaccine passports. Yep. I had to rent privately from a gentleman that was a sympathizer. Crazy. Privatize your data. That's why I do what I do. When I was 12 years old, I built my first computer, and it was a 286, which really barely ran anything. There were no graphics. I couldn't do graphics. I mean, I'm sure that there was a program that allowed me to draw a circle out there, but I didn't know how to draw a circle with it. Like there wasn't even a mouse. it, it was just a keyboard. I didn't know how to draw a circle with a keyboard. And just that experience, I was like, man, this is a miracle to me. It's a miracle. I remember asking my uncle one time, I was like, all the electricity that goes through all those different transistors, like, it has to be a very specific pattern or it's not going to display correctly on the screen. And he goes, yeah. I said, do you know where all the routes of electricity go? And he goes, well, generally speaking, it goes into this area and then it goes into this area. I don't know which wire it goes through, but yeah. And to me, that was just a miracle. It was a miracle. 14 years old, sitting in the kitchen. There was the kitchen and the dining room. And between the kitchen and the dining room, there was a little barrier wall. And our computer was in that corner. And we huddled around that, a whole family huddled around that to watch that. It was the 30-second video. It took 2 hours to download. We lived so remotely. 56.6 baud. And that was on a good day. Sometimes the phone connection wasn't ideal and we had to default back to 26, half that speed. You know, we're measuring speed now. It's like if you don't get 10 gigabits per second, you're pounding the table. And yeah, 26, that's like less than 0.2% of the same speed that we complain we don't get. To watch a 30-second video from the San Diego Zoo, that was a miracle. Yeah, I didn't really follow the tech world a whole lot, again, from that perspective, until in 1999. When there was this idea that came around, and the only reason I found out about it was because my family went to church. Ugh. And there, we ended up meeting someone who talked about the end of the world that was right around the corner because all of the computers didn't know what the year 2000 would look like in their programming language. And that was a huge scare. We were told that we wouldn't be able to pump gas because that was done by computer. You know, because there's a computer in there that measures the fuel as it goes through. That you had to find a gas. You would have had to have found a gas station that didn't have that. Had to have the old analog rotator meter. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to get fuel. That's what we were told. We were told that the whole power grid was going to shut down because the computers didn't know what the year 2000 would look like. There was even another little subset of fear propaganda that came through CBC during that time. It would be interesting to go back and look at those archives. They said that, I think it was a day in September, I want to say it was September 9th, 1999. That was that was going to be a huge scare because in programming, they said, I don't even know if it's true, but they said this on the news. In programming, 4 nines means emergency shutdown, like turn everything off. And that fascinated me afterwards when it all went down. I was realizing close to the end of 1999, coming into 2000, I remember there was a distinct point before the New Year's Day that everything that the media was saying was just to get people scared. And I was in a family where they were still scared. They were still talking about it. They were still having that friend from church come over and visit with him and get to know more about the end of the world when I figured out this was a scam. And for 2000, we had our little hall, community hall out in the middle of nowhere. And they were having their New Year's party like they did every year. And because I was on the board for that community hall, I helped out do things like, we built a skating rink there and all kinds of stuff. So I kind of knew the building. And they were having their party, and I went to the back of the building, and they were going 5, 4, 3, 2, getting ready to kiss each other. And when they went to 0, I went and I flipped the breakers just to turn everything off. Just get everybody scared. Then it was in university when I realized the power of a second email address. Because the university gave me an email address for my student account. And I was like, this is a whole other identifier. It's a whole other account, a whole other collection of data. Just for myself as a student, just for my identifier as a student. And that sparked something in me. I couldn't really figure out what it was, but I remember that opening up a world for me. But it was in 2008 when I found out about the identifier they call the citizen. And how that was just a corporation that got started. When the physical body's day of arrival, where I was born, that the physical body got registered, and that registration started an account. It was in 2008 when that changed everything for me. It was my ex-father-in-law that introduced the idea to me, said that, hey, maybe we can get out of paying taxes. Wouldn't that be awesome? And I was like, hell yeah. He didn't pursue that route, but I did. And I found it was wrought with scams, including the one that he had introduced me to. It was a scam. But there were elements of truth, threads of truth that I continued to follow. And towards the end of 2008, when I signed up for Facebook, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to go viral. And everyone's going to identify themselves by their Facebook account. No different than how the government identifies us as a ledger. And I put the 2 and 2 together. I was like, they're going to have this idea of a digital ID is going to be connected to all of the data that we create to be associated with that ledger. We're going to just create data, and that data is going to be associated with the account, and we're just going to get taxed data. And isn't it interesting? You know what the currency of LLMs are? When you're dealing with all these LLMs, you know what you're doing is that you are using compute. It takes electricity for these computers to do their job, and then they come out with an output, right? Well, that you're paying for the generation of electricity is what you're paying for. You're not really paying for, you're paying for a specific arrangement of electrical impulses through a grid of electronics. That's what you're paying for. But the name of the currency that is used throughout every AI, all these LLMs, the name of the currency, this measurement of compute, is called a token. So you're going to be consuming tokens. You're going to be trading tokens, one token for another token. You're going to be taking your fiat currency, and you're going to turn it into a digital currency called a token so that it can transmit your data so that you can have this communication. You know, we're right now, we're just transmitting data. It's a transaction. I have data, and I can take that data and I can transact it through this technology, and you can receive the data. Now, the data is very limited. I can't share everything because I don't have my biometrics connected to my computer so that you can see them. That would be weird. However, there is a lot of data that we can transact with. And so then you spend some time with me, give me some of your attention, and I trade your attention for some token of my appreciation, some of the wisdom that I have, some of the knowledge that I have, the expertise or perspective that I have. And I tokenize that. I put it into measurements. I've got folders and folders. And in fact, I'm kind of playing around with this one particular software right now, and I want to share it with you briefly. Again, I'm still learning how to use it, but it could very well be a very powerful tool for people. But it has essentially mapped all of my data into little groups, and it's like a whole sphere of data that is now in a visual interface. Like I can mouse over top of this, and it'll tell me what file that is. Right there. That's a README file. You know, I can go around and just look over top of something and be like, okay, well, there's another README file in the center, but media has caption. There's another folder. That one there, that folder, media has caption. I know what that's about. That's a rule that's being built on my website that makes sure that if someone is uploading a picture, that if they have a caption that they want to put to the media, it'll appear. So that is a rule. That little file is a rule that's on the website development. This is how this is data. This is all data. And I can now parse this. I've been doing it for years. I can parse the data by putting it into folders. Here are the folders. These are all the folders. Now I can organize that data. I remember 2 years ago I said, AI is a long ways away from being very helpful because I tried. I've got a lot of folders. I got a lot of work. And I tried putting that data into a little sandbox to see whether or not the LLMs could organize that data. It could not. Today it can. Look at it organized it. It put it into little clouds. And you can see just how disorganized most of my life is because they're not in groups. They're all little single individual little tiny nodes that have no connection to anything else. They're all by themselves. They're orphaned. And what this tool does, the reason why I'm going through this is because it could very well be a very good way to organize the data into more pieces that have cohesion. That would be worth more. The data would be worth more if they weren't orphaned. Oh. It even lets me check this out. This tool is pretty neat. This button right here, up in the top, it starts a time-lapse animation of the entire grid. So it'll show in a time lapse the creation of the data. Check it out. Is it working? Come on. I don't know. Maybe it's not working this time. I tried it earlier and I did it. Oh, here we go. Just took a while. It's a lot of data. 2 little pieces of data, almost like an egg and a sperm, and then all of a sudden it multiplies. And it's very slow because there's a lot of data in those folders. But you can see it's like a time lapse and it's going to grow. And you'll even see it as time goes by. It'll like shift. And then all of a sudden a little node will just attract a bunch of files. And it's like, oh, I must have moved things into one folder there. I must have organized some of the data that day. Because you can see it starting to create little nodes. So where am I going with this? Data is and has been since the 90s collected, brought into existence where you can reference it, no different than a great big file folder. Many, many file folders worth of files and folders. This would take up, what I have. I don't know what that would be, but using I got a notice from Claude Code there a couple weeks ago saying that out of all of the tokens that I've made, I could have written Pride and Prejudice 20 times. That's how many tokens I've created, right? So 20 volumes of Pride and Prejudice, that's a pretty good sized bookshelf. That's just what I generated with LLMs. The file folder that I have here, this is years of data. I've got, I showed you Audrey Lynn there. My phone shows 1,200 recordings. Is that right? No, I think it's more than that now. What number is this? Oh, this one is 1,029. The other device is 340. And I know that I have another 1,800 on this one. All recordings, like podcasts. And it's all just me riffing, people having great conversations, talking about consciousness, talking about business, talking about marketing. And I'm trying to collect all this data and organize it. And that's what this software does. So I'm thinking, now that I have a greater comprehension of how it works, Audrey Lynn, we got this. Put it on your computer to help you get your expertise, knowledge all organized. And I was right. I've never used a software like this before, but now I'm starting to learn about it and what it actually does. It is incredibly good at being able to organize things. And it is not an AI tool at all. Yeah. That's where I couldn't figure out how to use it. Because I was looking for, where do I chat with the machine? No, it's not that kind of software at all. So, yeah. Boy, that was a rabbit hole. Went down. Crazy. Video was frozen there. Any questions, comments, feedback, criticisms?
It's a full meal.
Yeah, that was like I brought the smorgasbord to you and just dumped it all over your table.
Yeah, I would say it was a full meal, but it's like it was courses. Yeah. So it's not like, oh, here's one topic to respond to.
No. And
So,
I wanted to record this because I want people to get a feel for why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like I started
mhm.
off with Harari because people don't recognize what it is that's really when I first was sharing his content, it was like he was speaking a different language. It's
Mhm.
almost like nowadays when I share that, when I share what he said, we're just hackable machines. It's like nowadays people can actually relate to what that phrase is insinuating.
Mhm. Not insinuated, but like demonstrated,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Well, I feel like I need to allow a little time before coming with response because it's a
Yeah.
lot and it's like your being that you're pouring forth. You know how they talk about how people listen so they know what to say next? They
Mm.
listen just enough to know what to say next. I think that's why it's important to leave a pause and let things land and let things settle.
It's true. Especially when there's a fire hose. Just take some time. Come back because I got more where it came from.
So I
So
have
I'll end it.
a query.
I'm ending
Oh,
the stream now. Yeah, go
okay.
ahead.
Okay, no,